We're now watching the 15th Knowledge Exchange Conference with the theme eCenters in the Digital Philippines for the New Normal. Today is our opening webinar titled Digital Philippines, August 20, 2020, streaming live over YouTube. Please stand up for the Philippine National Anthem and Doxology.
أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم فقال ربكم ادعوني أستجب لكم آمين يا رب العالمين الحمد لله رب العالمين الرحمن الرحيم مالك يوم الدين إياك نعبد وإياك نستعين اهدنا الصراط المستقيم صراط الذين أنعمت عليهم غير المغضوب عليهم ولا الضالين آمين.
In the name of the Father, Son, and Holy Spirit. Amen. Our most gracious Heavenly Father, we come to you today to praise and worship you and give you thanks for all the things you continue to provide for ourselves and our families. Grant us, Father, with your comfort in times of distress and with your strength in times of weakness. Bestow upon us your unending grace and healing, that me in turn become instruments of gentleness and compassion to others. We ask all this in the name of your Son, our Lord Jesus Christ, with the prayer and the intercession of our Blessed Mother. Amen.
Welcome everyone to the 15th Knowledge Exchange Conference. My name is Richard Amansek, and I am this year's conference chair and your host for today's webinar. This webinar was organized by the Philippine Community Center Network, or PhilSecNet, in cooperation with the Department of Information and Communications Technology, or DICT, with support from the UP Open University and the Philippine Council for Aquatic Culture, Natural Resources, and the Research and Development of the DOST, the local governments of Sayabas, Quezon, and San Remeo, Cebu, as well as the Asian Institute of Journalism and Communication, or AIJC. Of course, with special thanks to our sponsors, PLDT Incorporated and Quezon Power Limited, or QPL. This year's conference will be done virtually with a series of webinars every Thursdays, 9:30 to 11:30 a.m., beginning today, August 20 to November 26, 2020. These webinars are absolutely free. It is PhilSecNet's contribution in the country's fight against COVID-19 pandemic through enabling, strengthening, and facilitating the digital transformation of communities. To join, all you need to is register once for the entire conference. If you have not registered yet, please find the link inside the description box below. To participate in the open forum, you will need to post your questions through an open forum form. Please find the link inside the description box below. We currently have almost 5,000 registrants, and at the moment, over 200 participants in YouTube. And it may be difficult for us to pick up your questions on the live chat. So if you have a question for our speakers, post your questions through the link below and not in the live chat. Certificates will also be made available after providing us your feedback. It includes a short quiz to see how well you understood the topics, so pay attention. The link to the feedback form will be made available, again, in the description box below towards the end of the webinar. And now, without further ado, allow me to introduce you to our keynote speaker. He is a former secretary of the Department of National Defense and later became the Chief of Security. He was the first independent candidate elected 4 times in the Senate. He is now the Secretary of the Department of Information and Communications Technology and recently celebrated his first year anniversary in public service for the ICT last July. However, due to an equally important engagement, our keynote speaker sent us a recorded video message instead. Ladies and gentlemen, please welcome Secretary Gregorio B. Honasan II.
The COVID-19 pandemic has dramatically affected the education and work sectors for many Filipinos. The use of digital technology is now an indispensable aspect of daily life as we move forward with a new normal. However, if we are to truly embrace the transition to a digital society, we must first empower all citizens with the access and skills to fully take advantage of digital opportunities. The Department of Information and Communications Technology has marked ICT capacity development as one of its core focus areas to help Filipinos transition towards the digital environment of the future. And a key component of this area is Tech4ED. Tech4ED, or the Technology for Education, Employment, Entrepreneurs, and Economic Development Project, is an initiative that has helped thousands of Filipinos start their own businesses, get an education, and gain employment through training, capacity building, and upskilling activities. The biggest part of this project is the establishment of Tech4ED Centers, which function as self-sustaining, shared facilities comprised of learning segments, namely e-EduSkills, e-Assist, e-Marketplace, e-Government Services, e-Agri, e-Health, and Gender Development. We now have around 4,330 operational Tech4ED centers that serve 161,310 registered users nationwide. Tech4ED centers are hosted in various public areas, such as schools, barangay halls, libraries, and correctional facilities in unserved and underserved communities. These eCenters were built for sustainability, so the DICT regularly conducts center management training for our partners, who in turn take care of the centers. By training the trainers, the DICT aims to institute digital literacy for both the center managers and the users they serve. The ICT capacity development component does not end with the establishment and maintenance of these Tech4ED centers. however. Moving forward, the DICT is set to implement the Digital Education and Digital Workforce flagship programs as a restructuring of its capacity building initiatives, including the Tech4ED project. The Digital Education Program is designed to increase the ICT competencies and digital literacy of teachers, administrators, educators, and students, while the Digital Workforce Program aims to accelerate digital transformation in the local workforce and communities to better equip people for the evolving digital economy. It is also under the Digital Workforce Program that Tech4ED Centers shall take on a new role as spaces where Filipinos can better prepare themselves for emerging ICT-based jobs and industries. Now that I have shared our department's initiatives and experiences, I hope that we can continue learning from each other about our respective best practices in managing eCenters. This is a good platform to exchange ideas, comment on areas for improvement, and share solutions so that all of us will benefit. The DICT is committed to continue bolstering our programs in capacity building and to pursue activities that will not only ensure that Filipinos can adapt to a digital world, but that will allow them to derive the maximum benefits from the opportunities that come with these domains of the future. Thank you, and mabuhay po tayo lahat.
That was the recorded video message from our keynote speaker, Secretary Honasan II. Sir, thank you so much for your message. And now, allow me to introduce to you our next speaker. He served as Chief Technology Officer at the Philippine Dealing Systems Holding Corporation and the Philippine Stock Exchange, a former chairman and CEO of the Filipino-owned IT consulting company, and he's now the Assistant Secretary of Digital Philippines of the Department of Information and Communications Technology, or DICT. Unfortunately, Asek Mani cannot make it today, but he is duly represented by the Director of the ICT Industry Development Bureau at DICT. Here to discuss about Digital Philippines under the new normal, please welcome
Stop
Director
talking.
Emily Lou Versosa Delphi.
Hello. Good morning, everyone. My name is Emmy Delphine, the head of the ICT Industry Development Bureau of the Department of Information and Communications Technology. I am very grateful to be part of the 15th Knowledge Exchange Conference and the first ever virtual conference. You know, our boss, Asek Mani Kaintik, who's supposed to deliver this talk, has an urgent meeting on IATF related matters, so he actually asked me to represent him. But first of all, I'd like to thank and congratulate Dr. Richard. Dr. Richard, thank you. And Dr. Mel Bandelaria for organizing this 15th KEC and first virtual event. I'm happy to be part of this great event, as I've always been. I used to, present the Real Impact Sourcing, now Digital Jobs. And I'm happy to be with you again. To my fellow speakers, DICT colleagues, and to all participants, good morning. Our purpose here today is to discuss and exchange our take on digital solutions as the ongoing pandemic brought radical changes to the global socio-economic agenda. The last couple of months, we had to steadily adapt our lives to the new normal of social distancing, sanitation, and quarantine. According to a study on global macroeconomic impacts of COVID-19, the disruptive changes call for the critical role of the government to formulate multifaceted fiscal policy responses to address the financial stress caused by this pandemic. While community quarantine is a highly effective response to curtail the spread of the pandemic and reduce high economic costs, it is likewise crucial for disrupted economies to continue to function during the quarantine period. Amidst the changes, we have seen how useful information and communications technology, or ICT, was and is as a mean for societies to continue their vital functions. The new normal calls for new ways of governance. Technology is helping the way the government, the private sector, and the civil society engage and collaborate. There is a need for new ideas, strategies, and policy considerations to meet the emerging challenges that has been caused by this crisis. So today, we are in a special position to establish more responsive public service measures. Physical mobility is limited to indoors, but we portray a different story. For governance, ICT makes it possible for government to deliver vital services to its constituents in the different regions of the country. To avoid delays, we will be implementing ICT-enabled responses to key challenges to be effective and to be efficient. We have adopted digital signatures to fast-track official online transactions. The government has institutionalized the Relief Agad project. This is a system aimed at expediting the distribution of cash assistance under the government's social amelioration program. For education, students, teachers, researchers, and educators can remotely access e-learning materials to continue with self-directed learning and alternative modes of education. For our workforce, telecommuting software allows companies to adopt work-from-home arrangements for their colleagues. ICT-enabled tools allow freelancers, small business owners, and unemployed individuals to earn income at home. ICT also offers opportunities to reskill and upskill our people to be globally competent workforce. A good start is the provision of online technical trainings through our Tech4ED and digital jobs platforms, which will be discussed later by Director Malu Aquilizan. So we at the Department of Information and Communications Technology, along with the National Telecommunications Commission, have directed telecommunications and online streaming companies to help us ensure the continuous and stable internet services nationwide. We have provided free Wi-Fi hotspots in select strategic areas to this end. For our health concerns, we are supporting the efforts of the Department of Health, local governments, and other designated task force to strengthen public health monitoring and eventually uplift the state of public health and welfare through technology. We assisted in the launch and implementation of Rapid Pass system when the National Capital Region was placed under community quarantine as a whole. This system gave easy access for our frontliners and authorized personnel at designated quarantine checkpoints. Now, we are looking into contract tracing solutions, remote diagnostics and virtual medical consultations, and eventually the distribution of telemedicine kits to strengthen our public health system during this crisis and onwards to the new normal. For us Filipinos, we have a concept called bayanihan. It is our spirit of communal unity and cooperation. Through ICT, we can express this in our actions as we crowdsource donations for frontliners and the poor, organize assistive campaigns online, and engage in supportive forums in social media platforms. We are far from being perfect in our current ICT efforts, but in collaboration with all government agencies, the private sector, and our international partners, we are steadily ramping up our initiatives to be effectively responsive to the rapid changes. The transition to the new normal is not easy, and there is a need to define the issues and concerns on how we can work through them. Overall, this is an opportune time to recognize and invest in the value created by technology and build on its strengths. With that, I wish to emphasize to everyone here that our role as partners, we will remain a dynamic and innovative force that is more than capable of thriving through 2020 and beyond. Thank you and mabuhay. Stay safe, everyone.
Thank you so much, Director Emilu Delphine. I really like the part where you said that we should push for bayanihan for ICT. I think that's the real spirit of what we need to do during this pandemic.
Yes.
We now move
Yeah.
on to
Yes, we
awarding of
need it.
certificates. The Philippine Community eCenter Network Incorporated would like to award this certificate of appreciation to Secretary Gregorio Bionasan II in recognition of his virtual participation as keynote speaker in the Digital Philippines, live streamed on August 20, 2020 via YouTube live stream. We would also like to award this certificate of appreciation to ASEC Emmanuel Ray Arcaintic, as represented by Director Emilu Versosa Delphine, in recognition of her participation as resource speaker in the Digital Philippines live stream on August 20, 2020 via YouTube live stream. Once again, thank you, Director Emilu, for finding the time to share your knowledge with the center managers, knowledge workers, and ICT for development enthusiasts who are here with us today. Maraming salamat po.
Thank you. Thank you, Dr. Richard. Congrats again.
Thank you. Stay safe. And now, allow me to give you an overview of this year's conference. The following video is part 1 of what is going to happen from today until the 26th of November. Please watch. Okay. We now move on to our next 2 resource persons. Allow me to introduce to you our next speaker. She is a career executive service eligible civil servant and currently the director of ICT Literacy and Competency Development Bureau of the Department of Information and Communications Technology, or DICT. Here to talk about Tech4ED Centers as digital transformation centers, please welcome Director Maria Lourdes P. Aquiliza.
Yeah, good morning, everyone. I hope you can see me and all right. Okay, so salamat, Dr. Richard, for that introduction. A pleasant morning to everyone, and of course to our Secretary Gregorio Anasan II, our Assistant Secretary Asek Manika Intig, as represented by my dear friend Director Emilio Delfin, and of course to Dr. Ismail Shah, no? The Director of the ITU office in Jakarta, and to the Board of Directors of PhilSecNet, to magandang umaga po. Good morning. Naimbag nga aldaw yu amin. Maayong buntag, maayong aga, buenos dias a todos. Magandang umaga po sa ating lahat. I was informed that this conference is broadcasted nationwide, so I thought it would be good to greet you in your own dialect, and I hope I pronounced the words correctly. Pasensya na po kung ako po ay isang Ilocana. Anyway, can you kindly show my presentation now, please? Thank you. Before I proceed to my presentation proper, allow me to congratulate the KEC15 with the theme eCenters in the Digital Philippines for the New Normal for organizing this first ever virtual conference and a worthwhile event at that. And of course, for giving the ICT the opportunity to work with you, the PhilSecNet, and through me, the opportunity to share with you the latest exciting news about the Tech4ED Centers. Next slide, please. The Digital Philippines, as a DICT's flagship strategy, is designed to implement one of the department's mandate, that is, to promote digital literacy, ICT expertise, and knowledge building among citizens to enable them to participate and compete in an evolving ICT age. Hence, as discussed or presented by Director Emmy earlier, the Digital Philippines strategy endeavors to fast-track the digital transformation of governance, education, workforce, and communities across the country through a whole of government approach. Next slide, please. Two of the major pillars or priority areas of the Digital Philippines strategy are the digital education and digital workforce programs. The digital education program primarily aims to develop or transform current teachers and learners into digital teachers and digital learners or digital students. That is, developing their competencies in the use of ICT in teaching and learning. Together with CHED, DepEd, and TESDA, we are continuously exerting efforts to address the needs of the education sector, especially in this time of the COVID-19 pandemic. And this is where the Tech4ED Centers come into play. The Digital Workforce Program, on the other hand, endeavors to upskill or reskill the workforce in the government and ICT-enabled sectors through the provision of digital skills programs. Allow me to explain further. Next slide, please. This year, the establishment of the DICT ICT Academy is one of the major goals to achieve the objectives of both digital education and digital workforce programs. The ICT Academy is envisioned to be the capacity development hub for ICT literacy and competency. As an academy, it will offer training and certification on various ICT fields such as digital governance and management, transformative technologies, cybersecurity, and digital literacy. It will adopt a flexible teaching and learning modality or approach. Hence, as delivery avenues of the ICT Academy, the Digital Transformation Centers will be established and the skills window developed. The Digital Transformation Centers, or DTC for short, are the physical venues where the ICT Academy training are offered or accessed. They are part of the Digital Transformation Centers initiative of the International Telecommunications Union, or ITU. The skills window, on the other hand, is the online platform of the ICT Academy. It is a learning management and, at the same time, an employment management portal. Partnerships will be forged with various training institutions as well as potential employers, both in government and business sectors. Next slide, please. Broadly, the ICT Academy curricula, which the DTCs will offer or which can be accessed through the DTCs, are in the following areas, as I had mentioned earlier in my previous slide. These are digital literacy, digital governance and management, cybersecurity, and transformative technologies. Digital literacy training is categorized into basic, intermediate, advanced, and digital teachers. Basic, such as the ones offered in majority of the Tech4ED Centers. Intermediate, such as the digital jobs or formerly rural impact sourcing or RIS courses, advanced digital literacy training, and for the digital education, digital teachers, and digital learners training track. The digital governance and management track would include the Chief Information Officer's Cadetship Program and training on e-governance, e-government. For the cybersecurity track, of course, we have various cybersecurity and data privacy courses. And finally, on the transformative technologies, or what is usually called disruptive technologies, such as artificial intelligence or AI, Internet of Things, IoT, and the like. Next slide, please. There are 3 levels of digital transformation centers. Of course, levels 1, 2, and 3. Level 1 are the upgraded Tech4ED Centers with 20 computers or which can accommodate 20 participants located in every city or municipality and will be offering basic and intermediate digital literacy training. DTC Level 2 is the ICT Academy Campus, which can accommodate around 100 participants and located in every major island group. That is one in every major island group, Luzvimin and the NCR, and which will be offering advanced digital skills development programs. Finally, the DTC Level 3 are the innovation hubs, which serve as venue for knowledge generation and praxis. These centers can accommodate at least 150 packs, and there will be a center in every regional cluster office and at the central office of the DICT. Next slide, please. Just to give everyone an idea of the courses that will be offered or accessed through the DTCs, shown on the slide is an initial list. Of course, the courses will not be limited to this list. As may be deemed from the list, excuse me, the basic digital literacy courses are the Tech4ED literacy courses. The intermediate digital literacy courses include the digital jobs technical courses, among others. At the DTC Level 2, the advanced track include some of the courses currently being offered by the ICT Literacy and Competency Development Bureau, or the ILCDB, which I currently head and is a training bureau of the DICT. We have those initial courses. Let me reiterate, friends, that the courses that will be offered at the DTCs, as you can see here in the list, are not limited to this list. So we can have more courses, more basic, more intermediate, and more advanced courses. Next slide, please. To further explain the DTC Level 1, shown on the screen is its framework. The DTC has 4 required components, namely skills development, opportunities, partnerships, and infrastructure. First, skills development. The DTC must provide competency-based certification trainings to validate the acquisition of basic and intermediate knowledge and skills. This would ensure not only the quality of the training, but the acquisition of competencies by the trainees as well. Second, opportunities. The DTC must provide opportunities or access to jobs or higher learning to allow trainees to make use of their skills and competencies. Okay, so there should be opportunities for them to apply what they have learned. Third, partnerships. The DTC must collaborate or forge partnerships with local and national institutions and organizations to create demand for digital skills and foster local ecosystem development. And lastly, infrastructure. The DTC must have sufficient space, equipment, and connectivity to accommodate tasks requiring intermediate level digital skills. Next slide, please. Shown on the screen are the minimum technical specifications of a DTC Level 1. So of course, it has to be located, which is the location, should be accessible via major transport routes. And hopefully it should have a ground floor. Okay, it should be located in the ground floor or with sufficient facilities for ease of access of persons with disabilities or physically challenged, and of course for senior citizens. For the space requirement, there should be at least 50 square meters, and there should be movable type furnitures for multiple purpose use of space, so that it will not just be like a classroom type as shown in the picture here in the screen, but we should have movable furnitures for adaptive methodologies for the trainees. And of course, there should be provision for whiteboard and a projector screen or a multimedia projector, smart projector. And as I said earlier, it should be able to accommodate 20 people plus the instructor and the center manager. For the hardware requirements, okay, there should be at least 20 laptops with at least an i5 quad-core processor or equivalent and an 8 GB RAM. It has to have a CCTV package, and as I mentioned earlier, a smart or interactive projector. For software, there should be office productivity software, some programming software, graphic design or video or audio editing, animation software. Because of what the courses will be offered or accessed, like what I mentioned earlier. And then, of course, the skills window application. As I mentioned earlier, that some of the courses may be delivered in not in a face-to-face modality. It can be blended or online. And the skills window is the online platform of the ICT Academy. And for connectivity, it should have at least 25 Mbps. Okay. Next slide, please. So what then are the basic services that may be offered to a DTC level 1? Of course, these are in addition to what the services being offered currently by our Tech4ED Centers. Okay. So for access, registered users may use the DTC equipment and internet connectivity as being done now. And for skills development, for training, we will be offering certificate courses on basic and intermediate digital skills. And as I mentioned in the previous slides, this can be delivered online through the skills window, blended, where the content will be from the skills window, and with a face-to-face follow-through activities by an instructor, and face-to-face, of course, to be provided in partnership with accredited instructors. As I mentioned earlier in the previous slide, in the DTC framework, partnerships is one major component of the DTC. And then we also have job linking, online applications through skills window job sourcing system. I mentioned earlier that we also have the skills window, which is both a learning management portal as well as an employment management portal. Other services would include, of course, orientations on basic digital literacy, aside from the trainings that will be offered. And then there will be also orientation for using the ICT portal, example, the skills window, and the startup PH will be introduced in a little while. And then support for accessing government services online. I think this is also currently being done by our Tech4ED in our Tech4ED centers. And of course, definitely there will be capacity building for center managers as well as instructors of the DTC centers. Next slide, please. So to conclude, the end goal of the DTCs are to have developed and sustained resilient and innovative workers, ICT-enabled marginalized sector, accessible and high-quality platforms, and globally competitive digital workforce. All of these are part of the objectives of the Digital Philippines project or strategy of the DICT, specifically through the digital education and the digital workforce programs. Next slide, please. And so that this ends my presentation. I hope I was able to provide you with an appreciation of what are digital transformation centers and what is in store for the Tech4ED Centers. Maraming salamat po.
Thank you, Director Malu, for explaining how the Tech4ED Centers can fulfill the role of being a digital transformation center. This is something that our participants definitely needed to know. Now, I think we can proceed with the open forum. So, Director Malu, we have a couple of questions, and let's take the first one. Director Malu, how to enroll in your ICT Academy? Is it free? From Maylin Talay. Go ahead, Director Malu.
How to enroll in your ICT Academy? Is it free? From Malin Talay. Oh, all right. We are currently preparing the ICT Academy. So, wala pa po yung ICT Academy. Ang nangyayari po ngayon ay yung pong ILCD Bureau, kami po, the Training Bureau, will also be offering trainings, okay, online or blended or face-to-face. It depends po dun po sa situation, dun sa age, okay, na meron din po sa the ICT website. And I think yung ating regional cluster offices, meron din po silang sariling FB pages where you can see or view the courses that will.
Director Malu, when you say online versus face-to-face, is this using a web application for video conferencing also, or is it more of like a synchronous training where the learners can work on the materials not on the same time?
Both. Okay, both, sir. We will be having live online courses, and through those online courses, assignments, okay, or case studies may be provided the trainees, and they can do it during the session if time permits, no? Depende po sa design ng ating course, or pwede rin po nilang gawin after the course, and pwede po nilang isubmit. Sabi po kung ang design ng ating course is they will be requested by the instructor to present their output. Yung pong skills window, which will be developed, okay, meron na po siyang ganong sistema na even quizzes, and meron din po parang mga what do you call this, side classrooms or sub-classrooms wherein students can be grouped on classroom Ganon. So it will depend course that will be offered. That's why we mentioned po na pwede pong or blended or pwede rin face-to-face. Physical classroom ang mangyayari.
Right. I think we have another question. Director Valu, hang on. What would be the plan or intervention to be given to the established Tech4ED centers, especially those in the LGU and DepEd schools? From H. Martinez.
What would be, allow me to read the question po kasi medyo garbled po yung what ed centers, si LGU and DepEd schools. Well, ang plan po ngayon, if this is towards the DTC, no? With regards to the establishment of DTCs po, So, for this year, hopefully, we are hoping that for this year, until December, we will be able to Tech4ED centers to become DTCs. Hopefully po, we can do it within the year, and then early next year we will launch this DTCs, Tech4ED centers as DTCs. In the meantime po, as usual, tuloy-tuloy pa rin po ang pag-deliver ng services ng Tech4ED centers kasi because of this situation that we are in now, po, napakahirap po ang access. And it's good that you mentioned po, Mr. Martinez, about, or is it Mr. or Miss? I'm sorry. na yung DepEd po, okay, would be what? Venues or avenues for the teachers and the students to access their learning material with Tech for the use of Tech4ED centers and other areas, no, avenues for the DepEd schools to through their teachers po itong materials nila and perhaps to view yung lessons nating hindi po nila kayang mag-online for the whole course, no? Pwede po silang pumunta, submit po nila yung kanilang mga assignments, and then the teacher can give them advice. Pwede po nilang gamitin yung ating mga Tech4ED centers. This is it's like yung tinanong kasi nga po, we have schools din po na as Tech4ED centers. We are also coordinating, if I may share with you po, we are also coordinating with CHED. Meron pong Field CHED portal, no, na kung saan po ay nakanandas ng mga knowledge sharing materials ng ating mga teachers, no, instructors sa tertiary level. And we are coordinating with them na yung kanilang field CHED ay upload din po or ma-access din po through the Tech4ED portal. So, mas madami po gagamit ngayon ng ating mga Tech4ED portals, especially in this COVID-19 po pandemic situation.
Right. Yeah, it's true. Thank you, Director Malu. Maybe we can accommodate one last question.
Okay po.
Yaong digital centers po ba ay pwedeng puntahan kahit hindi taga doon? Halimbawa, ako ay taga Muntinlupa, napaparoon sa Carmona upang kumuha ng digital literacy na aral.
Of course po, pwede po, sir. Pwede po kayong pumunta sa kahit anong Tech4ED Center or DTC, no? Digital ninyo. Doon sa isang DTC or Tech4ED ay ganun din po doon sa ibang Tech4ED Centers or DTCs. So, pwede po kayong mag-aral kahit saang DTC po. At kung ma-skills window po.
There you have it, ladies and gentlemen.
Salamat po.
Tech4ED is open to all. Maraming salamat po, Director Malu Aquilizan. So I think we now may move to awarding of certificates. The Philippine Community eCenter Network Incorporated would like to award the Certificate of Appreciation to Director Maria Lourdes P. Aquilizan in recognition of her participation as keynote speaker in the Digital Philippines live streamed on August 20, 2020 via YouTube live stream. Thank you so much,
Maraming
Director
salamat
Malu.
po. And
Yes. Once more, thank you so much, Director Malu. Stay safe. See you soon.
maraming po. Ingat po, keep safe and in good health always. See you soon po. See you soon.
Likewise,
Salamat
likewise.
everyone. God bless
Thank
po.
you. God bless. And now let me go ahead and show you the second part of our conference overview. Here's a video. Please watch. It's my pleasure to introduce to you our last speaker for today's webinar. Our next speaker holds a PhD in electrical engineering from the University of Pittsburgh, USA. He is a technology expert, renowned panelist, and keynote speaker, and he is also currently the head of the International Telecommunications Union, Area Office of Southeast Asia in Timor-Leste. He is here to discuss the role of ICT in the new normal. Everyone, let's all welcome Dr. Syed Ismail Shah.
Let me share
Dr.
my,
Shah, please come in.
okay, sure. Let me share my screen. So, hello everyone. Can you see my screen and hear my voice? Hello.
Go ahead, Dr. Shah. We can hear
Yeah.
you and we can see your
Okay.
screen.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much for the invitation, and I'm very pleased to be here at this event. And I'll give a brief introduction about ITU and all the activities that are happening in the ICT sector. So, ITU is basically a United Nations specialized agency for the information communication technologies, and we work basically in three different areas. One is related to the spectrum, that all the technologies like 3G, 4G, 5G that uses. The other area is standardization. All the telecom equipment, they have to follow a standard, otherwise they would not be able to communicate with each other. They started off with the telegraph, for example, and even till day, all these equipment that communicate with each other, they have to follow these standards. And finally, everything has to be put together into and have policies that will actually use these standards, use these technologies for the benefit of the people. That's very important aspect, which at times is forgotten. One of the other feature of ITU is that we are not just only an organization where we have countries as members, but we also have the industry as well as academia as members. So more than 700 industry and 150 academia members. We have presence worldwide, and in this region, we have an office in Bangkok and another one in Jakarta, where I am placed. And Jakarta is office that I had. These are all the countries that we cover from these two offices, and Philippines is one of them. Philippines is actually covered by our office in Jakarta. Our main goal is to actually have to meet the sustainable development goals, and for that we are advocating the use of ICTs. So the main thing that we work on, that we have been working on till now, has been connectivity. But the question is, what do you use this connectivity for? So the thing is that it has to cause a transformation. It has cause a positive change in the society. So, what do we mean, first of all, by meaningful connectivity? It means that it's cost effective, available, secure, and so on. The devices are available, and there are so many parts to it. And the digital transformation would include, for example, applications that are there, platforms, the digital innovation, the digital skills. So, all these are important components of our whole vision. So, just to give you an example, let's say, what do we want to achieve at the end of the day? We would like to have a smart society where emergency situation is catered for. We have education, like we are in a situation of pandemic. How are we going to have the educational system running? Health, agriculture, governance, transport, electricity. Then the thing is, what are the technologies and ways we can that can help? We have the IoTs, we have the other technologies, the broadband technologies. The ICT has to be green, secure infrastructure. But these two things are linked. If you really want to use these technologies, let's say for agriculture, you need to have the right investment policies, the right platforms for the applications, the right policies and regulations. Similarly, people need to have the capacity to do that. And you also measure the results that we are achieving so that we can improve on that. And finally, the two things that are also very, very important is that these services are secure and private, and everyone is included. And that's what we mean by digital inclusion. Now, if you look at the world now, what is the situation of connectivity? We still have around 4 billion people that are not connected. Among that, the usage gap, which is that they are under a coverage area, but they are not able to use it, is about 3.3 billion, whereas the coverage gap, where there is no signal available, is 0.75 billion. But the picture is actually, sometimes the real information is lost in averages. For example, this is a worldwide average number. So developing countries have lesser people connected, and then within even the developing countries, people in the rural areas are less connected. Similarly, there is a gender inequality in the amount of people that are connected. So, for example, women, girls are less likely to be connected. Their percentage would be much higher as far as not being connected is concerned. So, what do we need for all these things to happen? As I pointed out in the beginning, technologies are there, maybe we have investment, but do we have the right policies? And for example, in Philippines, we used to have till so far till date we had like two operators, and now you're trying to bring in the third one. So that is a policy intervention which is going to increase the connectivity. And the regulation have gone through several generations also. The way technology has evolved, this in the same manner the regulations have also evolved. And right now we are at the stage where the regulations have to be collaborative. We have to collaborate among different sectors: education, health, transportation. Otherwise, you may have, like for example, this example of Grab and Uber. They are running into problems. Similarly, health related, e-health related initiatives, there are issues. So the regulations have to become to be done jointly. The other thing that we have to see is that in this sector, the ICT sector, the investment is mainly by the private sector. The policies are coming and regulations are coming from from the public sector. So that's why we need a change in the public sector, that rather than just regulating, stopping things, we need to become a facilitator. And there are so many companies also, the internet companies, the over the top, like the Facebooks and the WhatsApp and Line and other small and medium enterprises are coming in, content companies, telecom operators. All of these are there. All of them have a role to play, and that's where the role of ITU is: to advise, to aggregate, to act as a neutral party to all these different parties that are out there. So we look at connectivity related issues: spectrum, cost, right of way, licensing, infrastructure sharing. And we also look at the next part, which is the real purpose of this connectivity, which is actually to transform the communities digitally. There are two parts to it. The first thing is that we need to have collaboration across the sectors. We need the ministries, we need the relevant stakeholders to come together. The next thing is that we need to have scalable solution. It should not be like an app, it doesn't work with another app. It should not be that that app or application or the service is not secure. Similarly, the new technologies should not just be there for the sake of it. They need to bring in something which actually enhances the quality of life. And accordingly, we need the enabling policies in other sectors also: health, education, as I mentioned. And finally, all these connectivity, this should result not only in entertainment, but it should also result in economic activity while keeping the safety of the people in mind, online security, online threats. So we need a balance among all these. There are so many challenges that nowadays the governments, the regulators are facing. How to license a network? How should be spectrum allocated? How can the security and privacy be enforced or made sure? Similarly, infrastructure. As we move into 5G, we will see many of the street furniture would be used. Similarly, as we move into artificial intelligence, there will be certain decision making that has to be made. For example, self-driving cars. Similarly, data related issues. And finally, a very important issue is the disposal of electronic waste. So that's why ITU has come up with what we call the collaborative regulation, that we collaborate across all the sectors. We regulate, but together we consult each other and communicate, we facilitate each other, we collaborate with data protection authorities, central banks, judiciary. Similarly, we partner with other stakeholders. And these can be some of the mechanisms that will let us collaborate through integrated policies, legislation, co-regulation, or even simply as MOUs or projects. The second part of digital transformation is the innovation. As you may have seen, there are some countries who have more innovative products than others. So I'm glad to inform you that in Philippines we have been able to work with Philippines on digital innovation policy, so that the investment that is going into the ICT sector also creates the socio-economic impact. And that is a gap that is actually increasing among countries. And hopefully we will try in Philippines, and we are trying in other countries, that this gap decreases. And what do we mean by this digital innovation ecosystem? That we have the SMEs, we have the academia, we have the government organization, we have all the relevant stakeholders, the right policies, opening up a business, closing down a business. All these things should be easy to do. There are three things that we actually address through this initiative. One is the knowledge gap, how the startups, how much they don't know, how they should actually innovate, how should they have access to funding, what are the government policies, how are they restricting this innovation, and finally putting everything together and having bankable projects that are funded. And the other thing that I would like to briefly mention is about the COVID-19. ICT has responded to this COVID situation in many different ways. The existing telecom operators, the governments, and many of these ways are written on this slide that you can go through. But the important part is that this COVID 19 actually made us realize how important ICT has become. And actually, this should lead to a fast tracking of ICT related initiatives, because this pandemic is, first of all, not going to be over very soon. And also the learning that we are having from this should continue. These steps that we are taking should become permanent, because these are also techniques that are helping in controlling these diseases. For example, big data tracking, and so on. These technologies should be used to create more jobs that are being lost. So, as I said, think of the responses to COVID as a pilot and see what is working. Conduct an analysis, change the policies, relax regulation, come up with innovative programs, and look at long term impact of these products. What ITU has been doing in Asia Pacific is also very, very important. So, there are so many things that we are working on, and they are around innovation, sustainability, inclusiveness, growth, and partnership. And within that, we are actually combining these into different projects. And one of that project is called Giga. Giga is actually a project where all the schools are being connected. So I would expect, and I would suggest, I would encourage Philippines to become part of this project, where all the schools in the country are mapped, and then a funding mechanism is established, and then those schools are connected, and through those schools, actually the communities are connected, the communities that exist. And I have personally visited schools in Philippines, in areas where there was even no electricity, but still they were using ICTs. So in this regard, the way we work is that we work simultaneously on digital skills. We also work on the assessment, how well the country is doing. A very important concept, and I will encourage all of you to look at, is this concept that has been introduced, and it is called the smart village. And while we are also working on smart sustainable cities, we definitely would like to have smart villages, and this giga project, connectivity of the school project, can actually act to that. What is smart village? This is basically a collection of services that the government, the private sector can provide to the village. One of the and using the connectivity. Even if there is no connectivity, we can still have some form of some services using the satellite communication, for example. But the important part is to have scalable solutions, so that those solutions, they talk to each other, they can be replicated, and more importantly, they address the needs of the people. And while we are doing so, we are also working on what we call the last mile connectivity, which means how we are going to connect these schools, how we are going to connect these villages that are currently not connected. What is the best way to connect them? What is the most economical way? What is the most sustainable way? And this will also be launched very soon. So what I would request, Philippines, for example, is to contact us, become part of this project. The relevant contact details are provided here. Finally, to conclude, uh, we need to do a whole lot. We need to work on policies, we need to work on application, we need to work on investment and pilot programs. As I mentioned, COVID-19, you can think of it as pilot. What we basically need is a mindset change, so that all the other sectors and ICT sector can work together, so that we have easier regulation, ease of doing business, collaboration for longer term impact. And as I mentioned, ITU is actually looking for partnering on several digital transformation projects. We are also we are also present on social media, and you can follow us and see what we are doing in this region. These are some of the useful links. For example, if you have more interest in the COVID-19 response, we have collected all the responses from all over the world that has the ICT sector has provided. If you're interested in forward-looking regulation, there is the link. Similarly, Smart Village and Connectivity Toolkit. Thank you very much. And here is my email address. If you have any question, please contact me and I'll be happy to share with you further details. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Dr. Shah, for elaborating to us the role of ICT in the new normal. The smart village is certainly something that our e-centers can surely adapt. Probably some of our viewers are interested to post their questions. So for those who are interested to post their questions for Dr. Shah, all participants watching this live stream might join us by posting your questions through the link in the description box below. So let's have a look at our first question. Dr. Shah, when will this smart village be implemented here in the Philippines? Any idea?
Okay. Thank you so much for this question. Actually, it depends on Philippines itself. So we have already piloted this in Africa. Niger is a country where we first piloted it. Now we are working in Indonesia, and Philippines can be next if there is an interest. So what we need is a partnership. For example, in Indonesia, they have 75,000 villages, so they have a separate ministry for villages, Ministry of Villages. They are working with the ICT ministry and us. So we are together working on this project. So if there is an interest in Philippines, we can actually do that, and DICT can actually lead, or your ministry can also be part of it if there is an interest. And I'm sure there would be an interest, because Philippines also, there are many islands and many villages that can benefit from this program. The benefit of this program is that this is a platform. So what we are advocating is that platform where we first of all conduct a study on what are the services required in a particular village, and then this platform is then replicated everywhere. It's not that we reinvent the wheel in all the places. Connectivity part can be different, but the platform is the same.
That's interesting. Yeah, most definitely, we will have some conversations with the Department of Information and Communications Technology to make that happen. Let's see the next question. From Engineer Sajid Makabalang, an easy question. What is the update on the 5G operating frequencies? Is it ready to be rolled out, since the third telco here in the Philippines will be operational? This is something that we somehow glanced about when we were initially discussing 5G or telco. So any idea from your end?
Okay, very good question. Actually, ITU, one of the main tasks that ITU is doing is on spectrum. At the ITU, we call it IMT. So all these technologies, and IMT stand for International Mobile Telephone. And within that, we have IMT 2020, for example, that is 5G. IMT Advanced was 4G, and IMT 2000 was 3G equivalent. These 3G, 4G, 5G, these are industry terms. The official names by ITU are IMT. So IMT standardization is going to be finalized this year. That's why it is called IMT 2020. The versions that you are actually seeing are the IMT 2020 versions, which work on one of the major part of IMT or 5G, which is the enhanced data rate. So as you can see that when you want to have more data, you need more spectrum. So that is why last year in WRC 19 World Radio Conference that was held last year, the amount of spectrum was increased from about 1.8 gigahertz, which is 1800 megahertz, to about 2000 gigahertz. So the spectrum was increased tremendously. You can see the amount that it has been increased from 2000 megahertz to 2 gigahertz. As it's a very big jump that has been made, and so many frequencies have been identified, or spectrum that has been identified. The good thing about Philippines is that some of the bands that have been given to the new operator, they are already 5G bands. So the new operator can actually, and also the existing two operators can easily launch at least the basic 5G very soon if they want to. But here I would like to emphasize that it is not about the Gs, it is about what kind of service, what kind of quality, what kind of service they can be used for, and the availability of handsets and so on. So this is the most important part. And the other thing that I would like to emphasize is that we should not stop. Okay, now that you have the third mobile operator, let's say, or if you will have it very soon because of COVID, maybe it got delayed a little. It's not that you just say, okay, we are done. This is a continuous process that must happen, and you must continue to give out spectrum. And I'm pleased to know that, to tell you that DICT and NTC are one of the most forward looking ICT regulators and ICT ministry in this whole region.
That is very true. Yes, and I'm glad to hear that the ITU is recognizing the efforts of the ICT as well with regard to improving our interconnectivity. Maybe we have another question. Let's see. ITU, unlike the UN agencies, how can it specifically help the Philippines besides for digital innovation policy work in concretely achieving meaningful connectivity or smart society?
Okay, so as I said, we are already assisting in digital innovation, which is very important aspect of having a smart society. For meaningful connectivity, actually ITU was part of the selection for the third mobile operator, and we were able to convince, along with DICT, the government of Philippines, not to charge fee for spectrum, but rather put in conditions on speed and coverage, which will increase the connectivity rather than having upfront money. And actually, I'm very, again, you can see the vision of the government of Philippines, that they agreed to this. And this is something that is not done by many countries, because many countries, they just look at the upfront auction fee that they get. So that was for meaningful connectivity. But at the same time, you should look at all the other alternate technologies and business models. For example, the village connectivity, the community networks. The community networks is another important aspect which should be explored. The new technologies that are out there, there is something which is called Y-Gig, for example, which is a high-speed Wi-Fi, and also having the smart city concept implemented. And beside that, I would also recommend that Philippines embark on that smart sustainable city project also. For that, what we do is that first we conduct a study of the city, of how smart and sustainable it is, and where it lacks, and we make specific recommendations. So I think that is another area where we can meaningfully connect people and have a smart society.
Mm-hmm. Yes, that's quite interesting.
And the school I already mentioned, like you see, start with the basic level, and keeping the school, the children in a safe online environment. That's another aspect of this project. So they start with a safe environment of learning online. So that's another part that we can help with.
Thank you for that and for the opportunity that we can get from ITU's support. I think we still have another question. Smart village is very interesting, Dr. Shah. Do you think it could operate in remote areas where connectivity is a problem? From Teresa Tatamisan.
Yes, I think this is one of the questions that I also had in my mind. Like when you talk about villages, usually connectivity is an issue. But think about this, the if you have nothing else available, you can still have satellite connectivity. Like whole of Philippines, wherever you are, you can have at least satellite connectivity. Now that satellite connectivity can be expensive, but now with the recent changes in satellite communication, there are things that can be done. For example, we can have a local server, and by server I don't mean that you put in big computers. A server can be a small laptop that the community actually has, which is connected to the backhaul, and that laptop or that server has most of the basic connectivity, most of the basic services available, and it communicates using the satellite the connectivity at the back level whenever it is required. And that connectivity, and now satellite also has a broadcasting mode to upload information on many different servers simultaneously. So let's say if you have 100 villages connected and you want to upload information, you can just upload it in one go, rather than first of all connecting to one village, then to another, then to the third one. So actually there are ways to work around that, that is to start serving the villages while you are also at simultaneously trying to work on connecting them through fiber optic or through other technologies. So I personally believe that the connectivity should not stop us from going for smart villages.
Yes, that's a good suggestion. Connectivity should not be a problem for smart villages to happen. Definitely. Yes.
Yes.
Maybe you have another question. How much does it cost to set up a smart village? So that's a rough estimate, maybe.
Yeah, and actually it depends on what you want to achieve, because you see what we do is that we say that what is it that you would like that village to have. So it can start from some very basic thing. I cannot give you a cost estimate right away, but it will not be too much. I mean, it will be maybe a few $1,000s that can set up the whole thing. But we have to also look at the access part. For example, how are the village people? Do they have the enough digital skills to access the services? So that's another part that we need to look at. That's why we have this concept of digital ambassadors who are
Mhm.
there from the community, because they have to actually make the people aware of what this technology can do for them. The second thing is the devices. Like, can the village people afford, let's say, smartphone, smart device? So how are they going to be provided? Where you will have a community center like what you have in Philippines, that can really act as a center where people can come and have all these services, and you can really reduce the cost by having economy of scales by doing that.
Mhm. Yeah, I think that's practically true. Here in the Philippines, we do have eCenters and Tech4ED Centers, and each center can be set up with a very affordable two computers. Even without internet, a center can be put up.
Yeah, but the main thing is like what do you use it for? Like, is it only used for entertainment, or do you really use it, for example, for all these services? For example, e-commerce. Are you getting e-agriculture information? Are you getting weather-related information using that? Are you getting education using? So that has to be instilled in the minds of the young people. That's why we are starting with the school connectivity. So when the school is connected, their mind is groomed in a way where they think of the internet and computers to be used positively for education, for learning, for economic activity, rather than just I'm not saying entertainment is bad, but it should not only be for that.
Definitely, it's not only for entertainment. Majority of the centers are actually geared towards to provide the community or their communities access to the cyber world. And under the Tech for Ed program, here is where the different areas of concerns are being addressed. You have there the agriculture, you have their social, you have their access to government services as well. So that is basically how the centers are intended for. Let's see if we have another question. Looking forward to all your projects. As an ordinary citizen, how can we help you?
Yes, but the way you can help us is to, first of all, I have given you this link of, so, or you can just type in Google Smart Village, ITU, Blueprint. You can look at Giga. So you have to spread the word that these are all the projects that are there. These are all the different initiatives that are there. And you connect us with the right people. And you also recommend to the people that you know in the government, in your communities, that these are the things that we really need to work on, especially after COVID-19. The world has really become virtual. So without these, the country can lag behind the more advanced countries. And actually, you see, the people are the same. They have the same mind. They have the same everything is the same. It's only access to the right information, and internet is actually doing that for you. So you have to spread this word that we can do it. So I would say that you can do it, everyone among you can do it, and wherever there is help required from our side, please contact us, but spread the word. That I would say that this is the help we need from you, that ITU is there to help you.
I think that's the key word, spread the word. And to all our viewers who are here, which I think is how many? Over 600 participants now on YouTube Live. You can definitely get a copy of the presentation that Dr. Shah has showed us earlier, and you can get that through the link inside the description box below. Maybe we have one more. We still have enough time for one more question. Let's see. The program is very accessible, but the problem is connectivity. How can we share this to students who cannot afford internet connection? Can this be accessible like Messenger? Like in the Philippines, FB Messenger is actually practically free, offered by the different telco in the Philippines. Any thoughts?
Yeah, I think these programs, actually these the telecom companies, the internet companies, all these would be, and the government itself would be partner in these programs. So they are going to provide these services like the messenger. So for example, let's say if you want to have a program for birth registration, so that would be the access to that website would be free, or can be free, if the operators and the government, if they cooperate amongst each other. There can be other avenues of earning through advertisement and all, and there are people who can pay for that. But for the basic services, maybe these are type of services where these Tech4ED centers, they can provide, or the government itself can subsidize some of the connectivity for certain services. And the operators can do that also as part of CSR. But we need to pool together all these resources and make it possible.
Thank you, Dr. Shah. I got a direct question from one of the directors of the DICT, and maybe you could expound on the components of the Smart Village, particularly the support of IT for Smart Village.
Support of ITU? Yeah, okay. So, I mean, as you know, there are so many solutions out there. Like every country you go to, they will tell you about different application they have for example, for related to selling your produce, if you are talking about Smart Village, or for example, for education, or for some other activity. But the problem is that they will only work in one area. The data that is collected is not available to everyone. And similarly, the applications are not using the same platform. So they are not. So for each application, you have to use different kind of platform, and it becomes very expensive. And at the same time, they cannot have the same security level, because you're using different platforms. So you have to provide different all security at all platforms. So what we are advocating is that there are so many reusable components in different applications. For example, if you're talking about birth registration and financial inclusion and school registration. Much of the information can be common, so you can use the same platform. If you have one platform, the cyber security part can be included in that, which can be a strong component there, because you're only dealing with one server, and on top of that server there are different applications that are running. So what we are advocating here is a model where, and at the same time, you have to see what the people need, what the people in the village need. So accordingly you design, and you can have it in waves, what we call waves. So waves of services, first wave of services, and usually it is health and education that we go for. And then in the next wave you can include financial inclusion. Third wave you can include other services, e-government, for example. Let's say you want to buy a sim, you want to have your ID made, you just go to that center, everything is done online. You don't have to travel all the way to Manila to get those services, so you decrease the traffic also by not coming to Manila. So this is what we are talking about, that these are the components. We bring all these. So right from the design process, we think about all the possible services, and then we do the design accordingly. As far as launching is concerned, we can launch fewer services, and then we can add on to that.
Mhm. Yes, in fact, some of our eCenter managers are already implementing similar approaches to make their services more accessible to their own communities. And that's also the very purpose of this knowledge exchange conference, because the different eCenter managers are able to share their experiences with other eCenter managers. Dr. Shah, I think we have one last before we proceed to closing. Since the third telco is under operation with the partnership with ITU, do you think the connectivity problem can solve even the far-flung area from RA Breñas?
Okay, first of all, let me not take the credit from DICT and NTC. The main actually work was done by DICT, NTC, bringing in the third telco. We only assisted DICT and NTC in bringing that. So all credit goes to Government of Philippines, DICT and NTC, and the other department, that for finance department that was involved. The office of the president was also involved. We only provided like technical assistance in developing the criteria and all that, and the criteria that was mutually agreed on by all of us was such that it could reduce the connectivity issue, because the focus, as I said, and this is something which is not, as I mentioned, and I'm saying it again, is not done by many countries, but your country did it. They did not focus on the upfront money, they focused on providing coverage and speed. And as a result, what is also happening is, will happen even more, that the current operators will also improve their quality. So it has already started, but the thing is cellular communication the only way of communication? Actually, it is a communication has so many different ways. This is just for quick coverage. Then you also need fiber optic connectivity. Then you also need free Wi-Fi that you are working on in Philippines. And then this free Wi-Fi is with current technology. We need to move to the next available technology, which is based on higher data rates. Then we have the 5G roadmap. And then we have, okay, all these technologies are there. Now what's the connectivity model? How will the connectivity be sustained in a village? So if the community, let's say, owns the network, is that possible under your law? Similarly, who else can have a small network? How much flexibility these operators have to spread the connectivity? And is there any universal obligation on the operators either to do it themselves or pay to the government? Usually doing it themselves is better, because it is quicker to actually reach out to areas which otherwise would not be economically viable for a company to reach. So these are all different ways. It is no one-stop solution for everything, and that's what we are actually we have tried to outline in our last mile connectivity toolkit that you can go through. And actually it also has the business models for different kind of connectivities. And again, a few other things like the fiber optic between cities, intercity fiber optic backbone, international connectivity, all these are also part of having these connectivity at the at affordable price and at the right quality.
Very well said, Dr. Shah. Thank you so much. I think that ends our open forum. Let me now move forward to awarding of certificates. The Philippine Community eCenter Network Incorporated would like to award the Certificate of Appreciation to Dr. Syed Ismail Shah in recognition of his participation as resource speaker in the Digital Philippines, live streamed on August 20, 2020 via YouTube live stream. Once again, thank you, Dr. Shah, for accommodating our request to share your knowledge to all our participants today.
Thank you so much. I'm really happy especially I really like the questions and the interest that everyone took.
We are very pleased. Thanks again and have a nice day. Keep safe.
You too. Thank you. Bye.
Bye. So, you have it, ladies and gentlemen. This concludes our opening webinar titled Digital Philippines. Join us again next Thursday for our next webinar. As we come to close today's program, please watch the closing video for a few more reminders. So that's it, everyone. This is the 15th Knowledge Exchange Conference with the theme eCenters in the Digital Philippines for the New Normal, a webinar series from August 20 to November 26, 2020. Once again, thank you for joining us today. See you on the next webinar. Goodbye for now, and God bless. Stay safe.